Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories now. President Muhammadu Buhari affirms resolve towards rebuilding Nigeria with people-focused policies as he begins a two-day official visit to Lagos State. Federal lawmakers raise hope on the release of Dapchi schoolgirl Leah Sharibu, as well as Chibok girls still in Boko Haram captivity. On our big story tonight, we look at Nigeria's efforts at meeting growing local demand for rice amidst the challenge of continued importation of the product. And Russia expels 60 U.S. diplomats and shuts down the country's consulate in St. Petersburg in retaliation over egg-spy poisoning in the UK. ChannelsTV.com has more information for you, and on YouTube.com/ChannelsWeb you can watch our videos. You can also watch us on your mobile device via your browser or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news and updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app have an eyewitness feature that you can use to share those pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and follow the instructions. Let's quickly examine the issue that we just saw at the colloquium. Further to discuss on this is an economist and is indeed a CEO of financial derivatives company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us here on the news at 10. Against that backdrop that we listened to just before the break and discussions at the colloquium to honor his 66th birthday for the former Lagos State governor. Paint a picture, if you will, for us on what corruption has cost this country in terms of looking at the corruption, how we've been able to fight this corruption vis-a-vis economic growth.
First of all, you have to differentiate between rhetoric and accomplishments. Corruption is the talk of the day today. Buhari has come to Lagos. This is his first visit since the election in 3 years. And the last visit he had to Lagos, he said this, that when we come to power, Nigerians will behave themselves properly. That was a statement at the State House. That was before the election. And it is important that this day we are looking at corruption in the context of the global as well as the domestic picture. Corruption is more than theft, as you can see on those slides. It has many dimensions. But what is important to Nigerians today is that we've heard so much about corruption. What are the results? The results are difficult to decipher at this point in time, but what we must note is that, one, Nigeria's position in the corruption index, international corruption index, actually improved in 2015 and 16 and deteriorated in 2017. In 2015 and 2016, Nigeria's position improved at a time when the economy was declining.
Why?
Growth was declining.
Because how can we be having a declining growth and then having
improved corruption?
Improved corruption? Is that the relationship?
It is more difficult to steal from a smaller pot. If your mother leaves 2 pieces of meat in the pot and goes out, if one is missing, she will know. But if there are 10 pieces of meat and one is missing, it's difficult to decipher. Corruption is more difficult to decipher in a fast-growing economy. So now that we've begun to see growth, we began to see a slight deterioration. But what is more important is that, are you comparing corruption of impunity in the past with corruption or what we call the normal state corruption? And then what are we seeing here? Methods of corruption, if you look at those slides, bribery, Halliburton, embezzlement, Malibu, graft, Osborne Flats, where you see $46 million left in the flat, extortion, Minergate, abuse of discretion, Panama Papers. In the world, total corruption is $4.1 trillion, while the economy of the world is at $85 trillion. What does this mean? Corruption is everywhere, but it is more in certain places and more visible when the economy is deteriorating.
In certain places?
Yes.
You mean,
like
could you
Nigeria?
Explain? In Nigeria, yes.
Yes.
For instance, where would you find corruption most prevalent in Nigeria?
Nigeria, there are arguments. Federal government, state governments, National Assembly, MDAs, judiciary. But what is happening in Nigeria is that only 1 in 20 Nigerians did not participate in giving a bribe or accepting a bribe last year. Total bribes given and taken according to the MBS was about 400 billion naira. But in purchasing power parity terms, it's about almost $4 billion, which is 10% of our total exports was used in corrupting people. Corruption creates leakages and takes out of the system. And if you look at our score in the Transparency International was 27, and we had growth of 0.8. Botswana had a score of 61 and had a growth of 2.9%. So there is a correlation between reducing corruption and increasing growth. So it's important. What the Vice President was saying today is about what we call normal state corruption and fighting corruption. And it's very important that it must be taken on board. And there's no point making excuses. We've got to a point where corruption has to be curbed, and that is what this administration is saying it's doing. But the truth is that people want to see more convictions. In this country, only 2 governors have been convicted, and they were convicted outside of Nigeria, and then one was reconvicted in Nigeria.
Would you say that corruption is the reason why not much attention is given to social investments, or just is it a misplacement of priority in terms of planning?
No. What has been stolen is not available to be invested. So corruption is part of the leakages, but it's leakage in the sense that it is dysfunctional. And you also reward bad behavior. People now see that you can steal, get away with it, so stealing becomes a social objective. Deviant behavior becomes positive for people, for the young, impressionable people. So young people want to become thieves, they want to become politicians, they want to become policemen, they want to, you know.
Is that behavior more prevalent in this administration, would you say?
No, I wouldn't say that. Corruption did not start now, it did not start 16 years, it's been all along. But there's a correlation. The more robust the economy, the more people pilfer and, you know, raid the pot. But in the last 10 years, corruption became actually endemic, right? And became almost an acceptable norm. What has happened now is to say, okay, enough is enough, stop. But this administration has not been able to actually show any trophies. They've not been able to achieve convictions. Under this administration, we've had minor gate, we've had a couple of embarrassing scandals, which could have been easily avoided. But you cannot compare in total its magnitude to what was happening before now. You know what happened in the last 5 years in the previous administration? That was scandalous. What you are seeing now is whatever happens because of social media is thrown up, people can see it. So it's easily identifiable. That is not to say that they are angels today, but definitely it's not as widespread as an endemic as it was before. But it is still, compared to other countries, Nigeria cannot be considered to be a transparent country.
I must thank you very much indeed for talking to us here on the News at 10. The CEO of Financial Derivatives, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. Many thanks indeed for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And your thoughts. Nigeria will join the rest of the world to mark this year's Easter celebration. And the president has been speaking on the commemoration, which is highly regarded by Christian faithful, to mark the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ as triumph of good over evil. President Muhammad Buhari, in his Easter message, extolled the exemplary life of Jesus Christ and his teachings, even as he urged Christians and other religious followers to show love, forgiveness, passion, and renewed hope in the grace of God. President Muhammad Buhari appealed to Nigerians to work for peace and social justice of the country in spite of challenges being experienced. In his words, quote, "By placing the joy, comfort, and happiness of others above ours, we will make a statement that vices such as hate speech, bigotry, corruption, banditry, and terrorism have no place in our nation. We must do all it takes to love our neighbors and display increased spirit of tolerance and accommodation." End of quote. The president reaffirms his administration's commitment to provide security, unity, and unite the country and steer the ship of state to a speedy path of economic growth, job creation, and development, including the safe return of the remaining Chibok girls who are still in captivity. The Senate is reiterating its call for the release of Leah Sharibu, one of the Dapchi schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram insurgents and is still in captivity. A federal lawmaker, Senator Emmanuel Boacha, in a point of order at Thursday's plenary, says that it is unfortunate that Leah Sharibu is still in the hands of her abductors and may not spend the Easter holiday with her family. But a lawmaker from Yobe State, Senator Buka Abba Ibrahim, is assuring lawmakers that serious negotiations are ongoing for the release of Leah and the remaining Chibok schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram.
Mr. President, I rise to make a passionate appeal to the negotiating team of the executive that ensured the release of the Dapchi girls. I make this appeal even as we want to proceed on an Easter break. It's a very holy holiday. I'm doing this also to appreciate them for the effort they have put on to get a few of the Chibok girls released, and then 98% of the Dapchi girls released. I know they do this bearing in mind the secular nature of our Constitution. I want to appeal that they should double their effort so that Nigerians will have hope in the effort they're doing to put confidence in the heart of Nigerians. This is my passionate appeal.
Very serious negotiation is going on, and I believe not far from now, she will also be released, inshallah. Thank you, sir. The last Chibok girl, the last Dapchi girl, and also the over 100 Chibok girls who have not yet been released. Negotiation is also going on those.
In the meantime, an ad hoc committee of the National Assembly investigating the Dapchi abduction has arrived in Yobe State, and they have been speaking with stakeholders on the event before and after the abduction. The committee has also given the people the assurance that the federal government remains committed to ensuring the quick release of Leah Shiribu, the only Dapchi schoolgirl still in custody. The committee is also asking the people of Dapchi to ensure that the education of the girl child does not suffer because of the activities of Boko Haram insurgents in the northeast.
Urge the federal government to focus more on providing adequate security to children schooling in Yobe, Borno and other states of the northeast affected by the ongoing insurgency, to forestall further abduction of students. Also urge the federal government to mobilize all security apparatus, including the Army, Air Force, the DSS, and other agencies, to rescue these innocent students and reunite them with their parents as soon as possible. Thankfully, this has been achieved.
I also wish to appeal to the federal government to come up with a comprehensive strategy of clearing the areas hitherto controlled by the insurgents of mines and mopping up remnants of the insurgents. As part of the recommendations of your committee, you can implore the federal government to organize and execute the radicalization programs